Well, duh.
Got a secret, can you keep it? Swear this one you'll save. Better lock it in your pocket, taking this one to the grave. If I show you, then I'll know you won't tell what I said. 'Cause two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
What's up, you guys, and welcome back to So by Gigi 101. Today is Tuesday, which means it could only be one day, one video. That is a recap review, whatever, of Pretty Little Liars, the final 10 episodes. First, before we get into this recap review, I just want to give a big hearty welcome to the new members of the Merpod. I have gotten a lot of new subscribers, and I've definitely noticed you guys commenting down below in my videos, leaving your theories, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you for joining the Merpod, and I know that the show is almost over, and I hope you stick around. And to the friends of the Merpod who have already been watching, thank you guys and welcome back. So I just wanted to do that little greeting really quickly. So now let's get into tonight's episode. Tonight's episode was one of those episodes that didn't really captivate me as much as the other episodes. There were a lot of things going on in that episode. So basically for Spencer, poor Spencer, poor frickin' Spencer. So as we know from last episode, the Hastings have decided that they're going to move. So Spencer is, helping her mom, Veronica, pack the house or whatever. And Aria just randomly appears. Aria is RB, rat bastard. For those of you who are new to these videos, I think Aria is a rat bastard. I don't particularly care for Homegirl. Just saying. She pops up bringing food for them. Next thing you know, she's like, I gotta go. And she's acting really weird. And I think Spencer and Veronica picked up on it, but whatever. So she leaves really quickly, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, through all the Bluetooth speakers in the house, this audio clipping of Peter Hastings and Mary Drake starts to play, and it's pretty damning evidence because it's talking about Mary Drake leaving, well, not leaving, but burying a body on his property. So Peter comes in
where is that coming from?
And Veronica is what the hell? Spencer is what the hell? And everybody's just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And Peter just starts running through the house, ripping everything down. And she's just really confused. And he runs out the house thinking that, Mary is the one who is responsible for what just happened. So Spencer leaves and she runs into who? Jerk-off Fury. He is no longer a hottie, Detective Hottie. He's now Jerk-off Fury. He doesn't even get the respects of being called a detective anymore, because up until tonight's episode, I was fully able to respect, being a criminal justice degree holder on many levels. I was able to respect what he was doing, but tonight I didn't respect him. So basically, Fury comes over, and he's like,
well, I came in for, pretty much a follow-up.
And Spencer's all like,
shouldn't I be in your office?
And he's like,
well, I thought that I would come to you so that way you weren't embarrassed.
And Spencer's like,
what the hell are you talking about? What would I have to be embarrassed about?
And he's like,
when you hooked up with me in the elevator, was it because you were trying to get over Caleb?
And that really pissed Spencer off. Spencer is in a really fragile state right now. And he really pissed her off. And Spencer was like,
what the hell does that have to do with anything?
And he's like, I'm just saying. And then he starts asking her more questions. And basically she says,
none of these questions are relevant. And when you have some relevant questions, you can bring me down under fluorescent lights to your office to ask me them. But I promise you, the only person that will be embarrassed after that is you.
And with that, he gets in his car and drives off. She then gets in her car, turns on the car, and in true Pretty Little Liars, or any really thriller kind of an episode, she gets grabbed from behind, mouth over her hand. It happens to be her mom, and I'm not talking about Veronica, and all she says is drive. Spencer hits the gas. They go into that woods hotel where everything seems to take place, and she tells her pretty much the story of what happened because she overheard the audio clipping, which leads me to believe that she knows who dropped it off, just as much as you and I know, but whatever. Basically, she just says,
you know what? I was getting tired of being bullied by Jessica and by Peter.
And in the flashback, it really seemed like Peter was not sorry for his affair with Jessica. And in the middle of him talking to Mary, Jessica walks in, which means that Jessica was supposed to come there probably for a hookup. So this meeting between Jessica and Peter was a constant ongoing thing. It wasn't a one-time thing that ended in Jason, which really sucks for Veronica and for that whole entire family. But, you know, whatevs. So she does the flashback or whatever, and then she gives Spencer this choice of getting to go with her, like to like basically run away with her. And in that moment, I felt so bad for Mary just as much as I felt bad for Spencer, because she's just going through a whirlwind of emotions right now, and it just really, really sucks, and I just feel so much for her. So Spencer decides to go back to the house, and when she does, she sees Peter and Veronica sitting there. I think she was in the barn, and they see the letter, and Peter is very defensive, and he's like, this is just a manipulative letter, you don't need to listen to it. And Spencer is like, what did that mean in the audio? And he's like, because she didn't act specifically that, but she made it in a very snide, smart-ass remark like Spencer always does. And he's like,
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer.
And Veronica was like,
Answer her, Peter.
And all he said was,
if you were being constantly threatened and pushed against the wall, then you would do the same thing that I would do, Spencer. And hell yeah, I would do it again.
And he walks off. And, I mean, I feel for Spencer, but in that episode, well, in that particular scene, I felt for Veronica too, because, you know, Veronica was just like,
Unpack everything. We're not moving to Williamsburg or Pittsburgh, wherever they were going to move. She said, I'm going to withdraw my candidacy.
And Spencer was like,
Mom, don't do that. That had nothing to do with you.
And she was like,
Spence, I don't have a choice. You know how this goes. You know how politics goes. Somebody's going to get a hold of this. And no, it's not my fault. No, I didn't do it, but I'm married to it. And it's only going to turn around and bite me in the butt.
She then goes back and visits Mary, and Mary's like, does your family know that you're here? And she goes, no. And she goes, okay, well, you packed light. That's good. And she says, I'm not going to go with you. And Mary looks completely heartbroken. And she's like, now just really isn't a good time. And my mom needs me. And then she kind of steps back and she says, I'm sorry. And this is where I really feel for Mary. Mary says, don't say that you're sorry. She is your mother, and you were very lucky to have her. And Spencer basically just tells her, no, because she says to Spencer, I hope you can forgive me. And Spencer basically just says,
I have forgiven you, but you have to forgive yourself.
And that was some deep, hardcore moment. And I was low-key just hoping that Spencer would just run away with her, but that wouldn't be a good way to end the show, now would it? So that's pretty much it for Spencer. On to Hannah. Fury is now on the tail of Hannah and Caleb, because they were the ones that had access to the hotel, because, you know, her mother, Ashley, who we get to see in this episode, is the manager. And so Detective Fury shows up at her door. P.S. Did anyone else notice that her apartment was 2A? I'm just saying, like, anytime I see an A, whether on the show or in real life, which I come across all the time, check out this right here. That happened on my way home from work. Just why? I don't even know. But, you know, he's questioning them, and then Caleb comes out of nowhere, and he asks Caleb, well, why do you live in the hotel? And Hannah says, because my mom offers him room and board, room, in exchange for him updating the security system. Now, when the minute she said that, I was like, you really put your mouth in it then. Like, you put your foot in your mouth in that moment. And he was like, really? Well, the time went out from this time to this time. Who else has access to the security system? They're like, I don't know. I will tell you this. After however many years the show has been on the air, these people can lie pretty darn good. And, you know, Hannah starts to freak out. And Fury's like, no problem. Even without that evidence, we have some pretty damning evidence anyway. And he walks off. So obviously that was enough to send Hannah into a frenzy. Hannah decides that she wants to play again. Everybody's trying to tell her no. And then Mona appears, and Hannah says, I told Mona. And of course, nobody trusts Mona because she's Mona. I freaking love Mona to death, but let's be real, girl. You have not been faithful. So Hannah decides that she's going to go off to wherever the woods was where she like put the shovels, and there's a groundskeeper, or not a groundskeeper, but like a security guard there, and she lies and says that her car got stuck or whatever and that she needs a shovel, and he ultimately tells her that the shovels were confiscated for evidence, and that freaks her out, and she goes back. And while all that's happening, Caleb runs into Ashley at the Radley, and she asks, you know, what's going on? Me and the whole staff were just in a meeting with Detective Fury for an hour. Is there something you're not telling me? Caleb lies. Hannah comes home. Caleb's at the apartment, and she's freaking out. She's like, the shovels are gone. And then Hannah's mom, Ashley, walks in, and she's like, what's going on? And Caleb just randomly gives this speech, right? He's like, you know, because she asks, Caleb, I can't help but wonder why you're back in Hannah's life. Don't get me wrong, I love you, and I'm glad that you are, but I mean, I just wonder, why are you helping her? Does she need help? Because one thing about Ashley Marin, she knows her daughter pretty darn well. So he made up this whole big speech about how he really needed her to help him, and that they had their time apart and they were with other people, but ultimately they'd be miserable. And he basically says that he wants to spend the rest of her life with her. Ashley goes, what do you mean? And he goes, I want to marry your daughter. Ooh, shocker there. So that whole Caleb Hannah thing ends with basically them being in a tent, Troop Beverly Hills style. If you've seen that movie and you know that reference, please comment down below. But they're Troop Beverly Hills style, and she asks, like, was that just a line to get my mom off of our back, or did you really mean it? And he's like,
come on, Hannah. I would marry you right now if they could find a bear that was sanctioned to marry us.
And, of course, they hooked up in the tent. So now we go on to Emily. Emily and Mona tag teamed up because Mona happened to find the doctor that did the procedure on Allison. Allison was not in this episode. She was off visiting Jason, to inseminate her pretty much with Emily's eggs. And it's a very young doctor. And basically, ultimately, they find out that he had taken a payoff, quite a big payoff, that is, to pay off his school loans, so that way he could do this. They confront him about it. He says he has no idea like who it is. It was all like an electronic kind of a transaction, and he just doesn't know. He can only give the donor's number. They leave. They take it. They're like, fine, we'll take it. They end off, because Emily wasn't really a major character in this episode either. They end off with Emily showing up at Mona's door, and she's like, listen, I've narrowed down the places or whatever. And she's like, that's great, Em. Can we just talk about this in the morning? And she's, you know, kind of just keeps harping on it. And Mona is very quick to get her out of the way, and she was not subtle about it at all. She closes the door and she locks like 600 locks. But then again, if I were Mona, I'd probably have 600 locks on my door too. And she looks through the peephole to make sure that Emily's gone. Emily obviously looks back suspiciously, because, Mona is kind of rude and kind of forward, but that was even suspicious for Mona. And that says a lot, because Mona is just a naturally suspicious person. So if you can make her extra suspicious, there's something wrong here. Basically, that ends up with Mona having the shovels and this huge board of clues, and her being on the computer, which obviously, again, makes her look like AD. Do I think that she's AD? Absolutely not. But it makes her look like AD. So we have covered everyone but RB. RB means rat bastard, and rat bastard could only be one of the liars. The one we haven't talked about, Aria. Basically, the episode starts with Aria being given the task that first it starts off with this really awkward salsa dance between her and Ezra, and it was like just real awkward, because, you know, they're like gringos and like they already had no rhythm, and then it was just really, really, really awkward. And then she had missed like a FaceTime from AD, who I'm just convinced is just Aria talking to herself. Actually, one of you guys said that in the comments down below of one of my other videos, and I 100% agree with you, girl. I'm pretty sure she's just talking to herself. That is actually in my theories, possibilities that you guys will be getting this week, because I know you've been asking about it. But back to the recap review, whatever. So she calls AD back, and AD's like, listen, you have one more task to prove your worth, and then you'll be rewarded. So basically, Aria has been playing this whole entire time. It's just she hasn't been playing on her friend's team. She's been playing on AD's team, and that's how she's been doing her turn on the board. And she's like, you have to deliver a package to Spencer. And Aria's like,
No, I'm not going to do that to Spencer. She's been through enough already.
and AD's like,
Oh, you think I care? That's cute. You're going to deliver this package to Spencer. Or Ezra's going to find out that at one point you thought that he was just a creep and took advantage of his position as a teacher on innocent young girls.
and Aria's like,
What the hell? I never even filed that. I was just really mad at him and I wanted him to be punished.
and AD was like,
That's not my business. You wrote it. I have a copy of it and I don't think Ezra would like it very much. And I think your wedding would be really, really awkward behind bars.
so of course, Aria gives in. That's when she goes over to drop off dinner to the Hastings, and she's the one that actually delivered the cell phone and put it up to their Bluetooth that played the message. She drops it off. She awkwardly makes an excuse about happening to leave. She jets off. Ezra this whole entire time is just thinking that Aria is really pissed about, the Nicole situation, and then brings up, ironically, or not even ironically enough, serendipitously enough, because when she leaves Spencer, she goes back to Ezra's, and he's like,
listen, I get it. I did some really, really terrible things I cannot take back, including stalking your friends. And I wish that I could. And I know that how we started dating and everything else just wasn't under the right circumstances. But I do love you. And I want to know that you love me too.
And at first, Aria was hella
confused.
confused. She was looking at him like,
what? I just want to know.
And then she felt really bad because she knew that the reason why she was distracted and acting weird had nothing to do with Ezra, but had everything to do with Nicole. And that Ezra was, not Nicole, had everything to do with AD. And that Ezra was actually doing everything that she had been wanting him to do before this whole entire board game, Jumanji font having lifestyle she has just led herself into. So they end up watching an old school movie, some movie with Sidney Poitier. I didn't really recognize it. And they fall asleep, and she has this random musical number dream of Jailhouse Rock, where of course Mona is one of the officers, and she's singing Jailhouse Rock, and Ezra's getting the crap beat out of them. And then eventually they walk up the steps to, get married or whatever. And which is the officer officiating this wedding? Veronica. And so she goes, Veronica, I'm so sorry. And she's like,
No, you're not. You're just a selfish little beep, and I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire.
Everybody on Twitter was like, whoa, hold up, Veronica. Like, yo, so much, girl. So much. So she wakes up, and A says, congratulations, you did what I asked. You've proven your loyalty. I don't know if it was just me, but all the text messages from A were just showing like glimpses in tonight's episode. Like, it wasn't long enough for me to read them, or maybe I just really wasn't all that interested and it was taking me longer to read than normal. I don't really know. But she goes, your reward is downstairs. So now she's going all over this restaurant because Ezra lives above his cafe, and she's looking everywhere for it. And I think Aria was looking for what we were looking for, which was the file that AD had on her, and it actually wasn't. She actually finds this envelope underneath the piano chair, and inside of it is like the whole entire bottom right, middle, and corner of the puzzle that's inside of the Jumanji game of life and death. And as she picks up and looks at it and reads it, because it says connect these pieces, Mona's there looking at her. So obviously it makes Mona look like she's A to Aria, but it also makes Aria to Mona seem like she's hiding something and that she might have something to do with A. So she sneaks into Spencer's house in a black hoodie, and she puts the pieces together, and the little cell phone, again trying to figure out who's charging the cell phone throughout all these episodes, blings up and goes, congratulations, your prize is behind you. On the windowsill there was a jar, and the file that she had written but never submitted on Ezra was there, and AD gave it back to her. Do I think AD kept a copy of it? Absolutely. It's AD. But yeah, that was the whole entire episode. So my thoughts. I thought tonight's episode was very slow, very boring. I initially, the one part that just kind of like for me, was definitely the shovel. Like, it didn't make any sense to me how the detective would have known where to look for those shovels. He doesn't even know where the body is. So that whole entire time, from that point on, I was like, something is not right. The detectives could not have that shovel. How would they have known where to look? How? So when it popped up at Mona's, it wasn't surprising. Do I think Mona has something to do with it? Honestly, no. I really think Mona wants to know who AD is. I think that Mona has an obsessive compulsive disorder where when she becomes fixated on something, she has to see it through until it's complete, just like a game. And I think that's why she never wanted to get involved with the board game initially. And she kind of like expressed that to Hannah. She's like, it's an addiction. It's like an itch you gotta scratch that you can't scratch until you solved it. Okay, I mean, I'm sure everybody who's trying to figure out who killed JonBenet Ramsey knows this itch. Just saying. But that was the only thing that stuck out to me. So that is all. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, or if you enjoyed me and you want to see more from me, then you definitely need to be part of the JJ Meister Merpod and come swimming with us on all of our adventures. How might you do that? You're probably wondering. Well, it's simple. All you have to do is rate, comment, subscribe, and share, because sharing is caring. And I'll be seeing you in my next video. Before I do my loves and likes sign off, I just want to ask. I know that a lot of you guys have subscribed to me because of my Pretty Little Liars recap reviews, whatever. And I know that the series, unfortunately, is ending in just the end of the month, really. I want to know what videos or what shows are out there that you would like to see me do a recap review. I want to keep you guys part of my Merpod adventure. And being part of the Merpod is telling me what it is that you want to see. Loves and likes ya. Bye.